Hey folks, my name is Dave. Welcome to my shop here at NTD Racing. I'll ask this up front, hitting that like button and making a comment is the lifeblood for any YouTube channel. Please consider doing that, maybe hitting the subscribe and ringing the bell for future notifications. We sure appreciate it. So we wrecked the truck just short of mile 300 at the Baja 1000. Kind of cool, there was some video footage of the wreck happening. Let's go ahead and take a look at that video, see what happened in the wreck. I'll show you how I fixed the truck using Fusion 360 and the CrossFire Pro. And then stay tuned to the end where I have some video footage of us getting Honcho back on the trail and back in action. So these are the shots that we have of the wreck we had at the Baja 1000. I want to thank Ivan Vasquez and his family. They're the ones who took the video and also helped us get back out and back on the road. But take a look at how the truck pitches into the hole and basically takes the entire load of the truck in the collision on that front right. And I think it'll explain the damage that we had to the front right suspension and the fixes that I'm going to go ahead and do. So at this point, the damage is done. Here we are in the hole, and this is just a look at what we went into that you see later on in the day, and it was just impossible to see it at night. So we were able to get back on the road, and we drove for a while until finally that tie rod mount just separated from the spindle and got caught up in the tire, and we were done right there. That was the end of our race. And you can see we're doing some fixes here. The fix was actually pretty cool. I cut some angle iron off of my trailer. We bolted that to the side of the spindle, and we were almost able to drive it all the way back to our hotel about 2 hours away in Ensenada. So starts the next chapter of this adventure. Let's go ahead and get this truck back together. I'll walk you through how we fixed that front right suspension, starting with the lower suspension arm, the spindle, the upper suspension arm, and the stuff we got to do to get this thing back on the road. We'll get started with a little bit of Fusion 360 and the Langmuir Systems CrossFire Pro. Well, if you're just joining our channel for the first time, what I normally do is I build a lot of parts for Honcho using Fusion 360 and a plasma table called the Langmuir Systems CrossFire Pro. And I make, the spindles, you name it, every part of the suspension, front and rear, I make with those two things. And you can go back and check in my video list on how I do that. Also, if you're a do-it-yourself kind of guy and you're looking for a plasma table, then check out my playlist on the Langmuir Systems CrossFire Pro. I am an affiliate with Langmuir Systems. If you go to www.ntdracing.com, there is a link to purchase one of these tables, and it'll sure help us out a lot if you purchase it using our link. If you think I'm saying these things just because I'm an affiliate, please go back and check out the videos I made before I was an affiliate. I love this table. It is great. And what's really cool here is that, so we blow up the suspension. It's the lower suspension arm is pretty much trashed. And so as opposed to having to go and order another suspension arm or something like that, I basically just pull up the file I had from when I originally made this arm. I drop it into fire control and back into the Langmuir Systems CrossFire Pro, and about 20 minutes later I have all the parts and I'm just about ready to get this thing welded back together. And since I was able to reuse the uniball and a lot of the stuff, all I really had to do was rebuy the cup that holds the uniball. I basically remade that suspension arm for about $100. And if you compare that to how much the suspension arms cost when they're custom, they're about, they're over $2,000 for a pair of suspension arms. So you just really can't beat the value if you're willing to do it yourself. And I show you how to do that in some of my videos, especially my most recent ones were how to use Fusion 360 for 2D and 3D design. So as I'm getting these parts ready to do a little TIG welding, you might be looking there going, man, I wonder where he gets that tool. Well, here's my shameless plug. Any of the tools that you see me using on this video, I probably have at ntdracing.com, and there are Amazon links for our affiliate site there for most of these tools. And if you click on them and maybe buy something, it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it sure helps us out and we appreciate it. All right, I'm no professional welder, but I'm always happy to tell you what I do, and then maybe you can decide if you'd like to do the same kind of things. So what I'm doing is I am starting to put this thing together and weld it. I will start with really small tack welds. And so the first thing I want to do is I want this thing to be as flat as possible. So I'm using all the clamps I have to clamp this thing down to my table, and it is a good selling point to find yourself a good table that you can clamp stuff down to if you're going to be fabricating like this. And then once I have it clamped down and flat, now I'm going to start putting tack welds. I'm going to shoot for putting a tack weld about every 3 inches all the way around this thing. And then once it's tack welded together all the way around, I think it's going to hold together pretty good. Then what I will do is I will just go and connect the dots. I'll start at one tack weld and I will TIG weld to the next one. And then you'll see I will rotate the piece and I will do another maybe 3-inch weld on another section. And what I'm trying to do is reduce the amount of heat that's localized in one particular area. So I will, and as the whole piece just starts getting really hot as you weld on it for a while, I'll just let it sit for a while. I'll put it down. Then I'll come back a couple minutes later after it's cooled down just a little bit, and I'll continue welding up to a point where I can no longer get my TIG welder in there. And then at that point, I will switch over to a MIG welder, which is my tool of choice when it comes to welding something that I just can't get all my hands in there in the filler rod. Or if I end up having to fill a big gap, then sometimes I'll just use my MIG welder. Welding the back side of this A-arm is much like welding the front side, and you just can't understate the importance of having a really good table and a clamp system to clamp down the parts that you're welding, especially if you're doing TIG welding, because the quality of the TIG weld often comes down to the cleanliness of the thing that you're welding and then also the gap that you're welding. If you're welding a big gap, it's just really difficult, I find, to make a good weld. But by clamping this thing down and closing that gap all the way up really allows you to make those welds that just make your part look really professional. All right, here's the finished lower A-arm, and it's ready for paint. I got the paint cans over here. I rattle can these things. You could powder coat stuff like this, but I just, just for about a couple bucks, I like just to hit it with the rattle can, and I can always touch it up later on, especially after races where it all gets chipped. But just some things to note as we compare it to the other one. Here was the failure of the other one, and you can see it took just a massive hit this way. I had somebody ask me, why don't you basically double up this area up here, which I would love to do. However, to maintain the ability to steer, it's got to stay about this dimension. And this is just not the normal mode. A hit exactly this way was basically caused because we went directly down into a massive hole and crashed the truck. So that, you don't expect that to happen normally, and the other A-arm was fine. So that being said, we want all the strength to be when it takes a load this direction, and it works great. It works so well that we had to increase the bump stop. So we took a massive hit, and you can see in this one where it left a divot in where the bump stop hit, and on the other one, it's even bigger. And so what we did to repair that is I just doubled that up. I welded in a little 3/16 inch plate. right there to take and distribute the load from the bump stop. Besides that, everything else did fine. So if it isn't broke, don't fix it. We just went ahead and made the same A-arm all over again. It all fits in there. As we make the next truck, we'll probably change the design a little bit, maybe even change the orientation, see if I can't change the orientation of the uniball from vertical to horizontal. But for right now, this works pretty good, what we're doing. Time to go paint it. As we get onto the spindle repair, it wasn't damaged quite as bad and really just required me to make a few more parts. So I get back onto the Langmuir Systems CrossFire Pro, and here I'm cutting out some parts and a couple more techniques I've learned along the way over the last year. If you could probably tell at the beginning of this, I originally made this program, I told it to cut as if I was cutting 3/16. So I usually cut about 45 to 50 inches per second. And it really wasn't a clean cut and kicked off a little bit of dross on that. But I decided that I was just going to change my mind. I decided to cut this out at 1/8 inch or 11 gauge. And so halfway through the cut, if you watch the video, you can see I increase the speed and you can see the difference. I just clicked it twice and I said 2 times, I increased it by 10% twice. And as it increases speed, it just got rid of all the dross. And speed really is what matters, obviously, with amperage, air pressure, all that kind of stuff. But the speed of the cut, you can see how it makes a big difference in the cut. Second thing I want to do here is like, now I'm like, oh geez, I got this piece of metal. Does this piece of metal, can I cut the same thing out again? And this one is pretty obvious, but sometimes it isn't. What I will do is I'll take this piece I just cut, which I want to cut out again, and then I'll just start locating. I'm like, well, I could cut one out there, I could cut one out there, and what I might just do is reorient the piece. Today I can just cut one out right next to it. It makes it really easy. But you can see that just, this technique of just like, I had a smaller piece earlier where I had to really shift it around to figure out where I was going to put the next cut. And in this case, I could put one right there if I had to. Today I'm going to put one right there and cut out the next piece. Here's a look at the spindle put back together. You can see the parts that were ripped off. This is the exact same piece as this one originally was. And you can see, man, it took a hit. That thing was just completely ripped off there. Here's the other one that came off with it. That was pretty impressive damage. So I basically just plasma cut these pieces back off. It took a little bit of work to grind this back down to get it into a weldable surface on both sides, but it got back down there. And then what I added on was just this plate right here to kind of just tie the two pieces together to try to give a little bit more reinforcement. And now it's a complete box in there. Hopefully a little bit more rigid, a little bit more resistance to whatever happened to this one right here. So maybe a little bit better. I think the only way you could make this a little bit better is if you kind of triangulated in a couple pieces up in here and tie this all the way down to this plate. But right now I think this is gonna be good enough as long as you don't wreck it again in the same way we did before. But besides that, just clean it up a little bit. I think what's really cool about this piece, which I designed before, and you can watch on my other ebesodes, is I made the whole spindles, is this takes the 2010 Chevy Silverado 2500 HD front bearing, hub bearing, which mounts right there. I oriented that. I was able to fit the brakes in here. And then now it also just gives it, it's 16 inches between the lower uniball and the upper uniball. And it gives it basically unlimited ability to have almost unlimited articulation in the vertical there. So really makes it a strong part and gives a lot of suspension travel. Pretty cool there on that piece. You can check out the other video to see how I made that. So this is the upper A-arm right here, and we're looking down on top of it. And you can see after it took the hit, the upper A-arm, as expected, just didn't take as much as a hit as the lower A-arm, but it did bend a little bit. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this into my press and see if I can bend it back a little bit. And then I'll come back and I will put a doubler across the top up here once I'm done with that. But I think I can salvage this part, not to make a new one. Here's a look at the upper A-arm that I had to fix. Nothing down here was changed at all. All I did was
I had to rebend this bearing. It was bent back about 7 or 8 degrees. I bent it back into shape. And then since I did move this around a bit, I just ended up adding a doubler in there, made it a little bit wider. And I think the place where the biggest stress concentration happens. So I think that'll be good from now, as long as we don't wreck it again. I didn't add a doubler on the bottom again because as the spindle's in here and it turns, it would interfere with anything I put down and made it wider in the bottom. But I think this doubler on top will do the job. Now it's time to get the tape off, get the bearings back in, and put this thing back together.
So here's the finished suspension, and check out the travel of that thing with no bump steer. I think it really went together well. I also think it's just a testament to just the do-it-yourself capability that you get when you have like stuff like Fusion 360 and the CrossFire Pro. I was able to, without having to go find, you know, custom parts made and somebody else to make them for me and taking months, in a couple days and about $100 of parts, I was able to fix this thing. And then now we get to go to chapter 2 of this whole thing, which is testing and getting ready for the Vegas Torino and the Baja 1000. Let's get to it.
Well, the truck is driving awesome. And one of the biggest things we're gonna do different from last year is just getting some driver time. Take this thing out, we're gonna beat it up in the desert. We're gonna get driver's experience driving it, and then we're also gonna see what we can break to have it fixed before we hit the next races. Hopefully you'll join us in the next couple of episodes where we're gonna be out in the Anza Desert, testing at Ocotillo Wells and also Superstition Mountain. There's a lot of good footage coming up in the future episodes. With that, I hope you'll consider joining us. Please consider hitting the like and subscribe button, maybe leaving a comment, ringing the bell for notification of future episodes, and we'll see you then. Take care of yourself.